Right? And I'm not playing.
Well, folks, welcome to another Comic Talk. We're going to hang out, have a great time. And with us is another great creator, Sergio Cariello, who I've known. His work dates back to our heyday. Like, we talk a lot about the 90s and this love of comics that kind of came out of the late 80s and evolved into this boom. And so many of you just love that art and the color and all of that. And he has just a great resume and experiences and things like that. Sergio, my brother, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
My pleasure, Brendan. Glad to be here.
So before we get too far into the weeds, give someone an elevator pitch of your background, of like how you ended up being a comic book artist.
Well, it started with a dream as a kid. When I was 5, I knew already that I wanted to be a cartoonist because I loved, reading comics, watching cartoons, and I love to draw. So I knew that I wanted to do that, and I grew up um, getting better at my drawing, and I finally found out about the Joe Kubert School of Cartoons and Graphic Arts when in my teens. But I previously, because of my mother's involvement with the newspaper, I was able to uh, be published at 11 when I created my own comic strip for a local newspaper in Brazil. But my intention was to come to America and to draw superheroes and draw comics in general. And so I found out about that school and ended up attending the school later on in 1985, 86. And then I had to leave, and I went back on 1990. And my brother had a had an involvement with Caliber Press, and because of him, I was able to do some work for Caliber Press, which helped me to um, to be absent. Uh, some some teachers allowed me to hand my pages as homework, as opposed to submitting homework for everything, and and I also learned lettering with Hi Eisman, who was my teacher then, and because of that lettering, I got hired at the Marvel Bullpen in New York City, and because of Caliber, of the drawing of the Dagon that I was working for Caliber, I started getting work from Marvel, and because of that, I had to quit my bullpen job to become a full freelancer. Then I went back to teach at the school because of my success in drawing for DC and Marvel. Joe Kubert hired me to be an instructor twice a week at the Kubert School that I attended, and I taught there for 7 years. In the meantime, I did draw every hero you can think of for the major two companies, Marvel and DC Comics, and that's how I got into it. That's my story in a nutshell.
Working at the Kubert School, which is just legendary in this field, what is one of the things that you would tell a student, let's say a student that didn't get into Kubert, or they don't even know what to do to navigate? The internet's changed all the rules anyway. But what is some of the advice that you could give to those folks that are kind of in that very, I'd say those early stages of their career and ambitions?
Well, um, the best way to get into anything is to get involved with people in the field that you want to be involved, you want to be working for or with. So any school that would have connections with publishing helps. Any comic book convention, any type of environment that allows you to hang out with folks that have the same desire as you. The more people you know, the better. So I would say that nowadays you can learn so much through the internet at the comfort of your home. But the best way is to get out and get yourself uh, known in a community, whichever community you find. And going to a school, no matter which school, if they have connections and you're forced to produce art because of the demand for a diploma and because you're paying and you're spending time there, that causes you to become better and also known by others that see your work. And that's my advice, is get yourself into circles of the same type of work that you like to do.
What is one of the biggest things that you didn't know going into it that if you could go back and tell yourself at that phase? So let's say you're at that very initial phase where, oh my gosh, I can get this gig over there at Marvel doing doing lettering work, but the chance at least they're seeing my work too, and it's like I get this. What's one of those things that you could go back and you would tell yourself at that time? Oh, I stumped him a little bit, guys. Sorry about that.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what I would do differently, because I always had the passion to do whatever I put my hands on, to do it well. And so I think I did what was best for me, which is whatever it is that you are involved with, you do it with the best of your ability, even if it's not what your final goal is. Let's say, for example, if you want to be a penciler, but you have an opportunity to be a letterer or to work in-house somehow in paste ups, production, whatever it is that produces what you want to be involved with as the main guy in the publication. I think I took advantage of that truth, but not many people did in my time, and that's why I went ahead of them, because I saw the opportunity. And even though Marvel offered that lettering job to third-year students at the Cuba School, nobody was interested, because everybody went there to become, the star of the book, a pencil inker. Nobody cared about lettering. I mean, I don't want to be a letterer, but to me, there was an opportunity to get in and to learn as I was doing something that was not my main goal, but it was something that helps you get your foot on the water. And then I did that. So I don't regret, if I knew this, then no, I already took advantage of what I should have done, and I did it. And to me, that is my advice for anybody is to be able to learn to spot a window. If it's not a door, spot a small breach that to be able to recognize opportunity, even though it comes not openly advertised as one.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply you would have regret. I just meant and I think what you're saying, so correct me if I'm wrong, is it maybe like sometimes you got this opportunity, just take it for what it is and enjoy it while you're in it, and know that it's gonna be part of the learning process that will help you out in the future. For instance, one of the things I think you may be discounting, and you tell me where I'm wrong, is I've always found value that if you could just get in the door, part of the learning is learning about the culture and how the operations work, and like who some of the players are and who makes decisions. And it's just knowing the face with the names. It's all of that has a lot of value that a lot of times people don't understand. They don't get that part. So is that a fair way to look at it as well?
Of course.
Yeah.
And going to the Cuba School, I learned from Joe Kubert himself, to to be nice to your fellow student, because you never know, he might be an editor in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I learned at the school, to be presentable. Nobody wants to work with somebody that doesn't look good, doesn't smell good. If you have an opportunity to meet the editors or whoever can hire you, so you have to learn how to talk properly. You have to learn how to deal with people. You have to learn how to be a gentleman. I think that's part of it. I mean, nobody wants to work with unpleasant individuals. And when you go to conventions, you must present yourself as somebody that is workable as a person, not only as a talent, but socially able. So all that plays a part, because you never know who you're going to be working with. And I believe I've done work for some of my former students over the years, and that plays a part. If you have a chance to meet people in the business, be nice to everyone. Be good. Be a good um, uh, uh, a good person to talk to about the business, about things, about other people's work, and so you got to have a sense of humility. And at the same time, you got to have a sense of pride in what you do as well. I think there's a good balance of both.
Yeah, I spoke to Doug Britton, who he just wrote his first comic book independently, and he's kind of a contemporary. I mean, he's probably a little bit younger than us, but he went to the Kubert School as well. He's actually lives near there, so he actually hired some of the students as artists. And one of the things that he said that really struck me of why he was tapping that pool goes exactly to what you're saying is he knew who was reliable, was making their projects on time. It was like a dependability. It was how they presented themselves, a sort of a professionalism. Maybe that's not the right word to use for what you're going for, but I think it is. It is for the sense
Right.
if you think about corporate and not necessarily professionalism, guys. Like we don't mean like you have to be buttoned up and wear a suit. No, we just mean like you're taking this seriously, that you have an image that you're trying to convey, and you will now represent whatever company that be, Marvel, DC, Image. You work for Dynamite. You mentioned Caliber. All of these different things. There's more to play than just, oh, by the way, I can draw. Well, oh, yes, that's great. And you might need to work on your dress code a little bit, or you might have to work on your manners a little bit. All of those things kind of factor into it, right?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and your brother is obviously an artist as well, and you mentioned that briefly, but you guys sort of like kind of have a little bit as in your blood, right? Who was one of the people that encouraged you the most when you were younger?
My mother encouraged us most, and but the encouragement was definitely on my inner soul. I mean, I didn't really care who thought what.
You know what? That's funny you say that too, because I was just listening to an interview, and this is the guy that I forget his. I get it. I think his name is Kenneth Kelly. Anyway, he's the guy that's behind Wired magazine, and
Okay.
he said the things that make you weird as a kid, if you can still hang on to them, they make you special. And if you can tap into that, like it's the things that made us weird. And it's like, that's because you're so unique in that little bucket, right? You as an artist, and you knew you wanted to draw and whatever. And let's be honest, a lot of people, especially in our age bracket, were told, oh, you're just going to be poor. You'll never make a living. What do you mean you want to draw comic books for a living? What do you that kind of stuff. There was that kind of stigma a little bit, definitely back then, because it seemed unattainable.
Right.
And you were able to say, you know what? I'm clinging to that. I'm going to hold on to that. And I think there's a lot to be said for trying to encourage people to do that today, right?
Of course, because I'm also a Christian. I believe in God, and I believe in opportunities that God may put on my path. And because of that, I had a belief, the same way that I create. If I believe in a creator who created me with gifts, I believe that he has something for me on that area. So that I take that into consideration. And to the point that when I met one of my Christian artists when he was alive, Alan Hartley, and he did some Archie Christian magazines, David Wilkerson, The Cross and the Switchblade, and some other Christian work. And I remember part of me also wanted to tap into Christian comics. And I remember him telling me over the phone, and he was already on ill, and he told me, "Oh, Sergio, there's no market for Christian comics. Don't put your hopes up on this. There's no market." And even when he told me that, my inner gut was not affected. I was not shaken by his negative uh, take on the subject. In my inner soul and my inner strength, I felt even more determined to prove him wrong.
I'm glad you did. And that was how I met you, actually. I remember having my copy signed at the MegaCon in Orlando. I got a copy for each of my boys, and that's how I got them into, I don't want to say reading the Bible regularly, but it like gave them as little boys the visuals they needed to manifest stories at a different level. And again, it's in the title, right? Because it's action. It's not like a classic Bible storybook that we had when we were kids. We're like, okay, we have some images of people in robes and whatever. We get it. No, the action Bible is it's just that. It's just full of like an adventure, taking you through these amazing accounts and incidents and events. And you were able to just tap into that passion and never let go of it. And I got to be honest, personally, I'll thank you. But just, I think as an industry, we should be thanking you, because like it was a gap that wasn't filled. It's like, I mean, I know there was some pessimism and some cynicism out there, but like you said, you just felt it. We as Christians call it like that stirring in our spirit. Like the stirring doesn't go away.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember having some Christians approach me at comic book conventions and thanking me for the Action Bible because it helped them to tap into the market themselves. So I think I had a role to play in this regard, for sure.
Sure. Absolutely. What was it like in that early day? Because people talk a lot about like what the Marvel bullpen was or what it was like. It's kind of been included in some behind the scenes documentary type stuff in some ways. What was it like for you? Was that a interesting collaborative experience? Was it really not what people think it is, or was there certain individuals that were more involved or not? Or what was your thought on all that? I just want to get your account a little bit.
Man, I was so in love with it. I was so in love. I was in love with coming to America first. I was in love with English, with King James Bible, with traveling the whole United States on a bus with 20 students and staying in people's homes for 7 weeks, meeting so many types of people all over this blessed nation. And to go, and one of my trips, I met Joe Sinnott because of a church that we in Saugerties, New York. We sang at Saugerties, and then every night we would stay in different people's homes. And the cook, Valkenberg, he passed already, but I like he cooked chicken for us, and I loved the chicken so much that I wanted to meet the guy who cooked for the team,
Awesome.
for the
Yeah.
group. And I went to the kitchen there, and I was very talkative. I was very outgoing, and he liked me so much that he wanted me to stay at his house that night with two other students. And then on the way to his house, he asked me, "What do you want to do after this?" And I want to be a cartoonist. I didn't say, "Oh, I know Joe Sinnott." No way. So he introduced to Joe Sinnott, and to meet Joe Sinnott, and then go to the Cuba School and meet Joe Kubert, and then go to the Marvel bullpen and meet John Buscema in person, um, and all those editors, and seeing all the original pages, size, um, seeing all the celebrities coming by. To me, was an amazing adventure. To me, every moment was a joy to meet John Romita Sr. there, work with him, and John Romita Jr. And to see people working on the books as they came by, and then they had to meet their deadlines, and I would be over their shoulder and see what they were working on, and be able to Xerox everything that I could, from all the pencils and the inks, and to be able to ink backgrounds for Keith Williams. And it was an amazing thing. To me, the bullpen was amazing. I loved the, even doing the paste ups and mechanicals was a joy. Doing lettering, I subcontracted people in my church in New Jersey to help me produce the paste ups and mechanicals that we took home, and lettering, paste ups, and all that, and inking and drawing, penciling. Everything was a joy. I even made a video of my last day at Marvel Bullpen, and I have it on YouTube.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have the
So
link
you
in
have
the
an
description
idea.
to
If you
your
look at that
channel.
video, it was very poorly done. It was done by my VHS camera from that time,
Sure.
and it was the sound was not good, and nothing was good about it. The only good is the fact that I had it done and published. That I transferred that with a software many years ago into a DVD, and then I published it. So it was great to meet everybody in the business, behind the business, the editors. Uh, Spider-Man model had tours with kids, and everything was so much fun. I mean, I met Stan Lee in person. We had you know some picnics, some birthday gathering. Everything was a joy. I loved it.
Yeah, it's such a great thing to at least have been part of my life. Like, I'm so glad. 'Cause, I mean, I got to meet Stan in passing at a show, because it wasn't as big as it is now back then. Like, you can go back even into the 90s before. I mean, the comics were big, but there were a lot of shows you could go to, even in the Tampa area. I remember going to a show one time. It was kind of like just a hotel room, and there was maybe a few hundred people, but it was never overly crowded. You never were rushed. You could chit chat with pretty much anybody as long as they were there. And then even in Orlando, it was like, yeah, there's Stan. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, there he is. Hey, he'll talk to you. He doesn't care. He loved the fans. He loved all that. And to be part of that sort of history that you were able to be a part of, I think is something really cool that we would be able to share with people. And the links will be in the description, folks. Make sure you go over to your YouTube channel. And he mentioned singing in passing. I picked up that. There are videos of him singing worship and stuff in there. So, you'll have some fun getting to know Sergio. We can't even scratch the surface of all the stuff that he likes to do and enjoy. Because I think that's what's really cool about someone like Sergio, like myself. I've been very transparent about being a person of faith and what I believe. I try to have a PG-13. I always talk about it being a PG-13 channel because, there could be a curse word from someone, a guest or something like that could get out, but that it's not, hopefully not coming from me, because my gosh, Mrs. Pops is going to kick my butt if she finds out that I'm cursing or how to slip up. Because sometimes that old brain, that old me is in there. But at the same time, we're just being honest and transparent about who we are and whatever. And then we want such good for other people. We want such positive things for other folks. And I think that's what your work has conveyed in many, many ways. I know I don't want to take, I guess we're not too far on time, but I have to get to one that is one of my favorites. And I know this may be kind of a crazy left wing out of the blue thing that people may not know. And you're going to be like, well, of all the things that he chose, this is the one, but this is the one I remember buying. And it was like, yeah, that was me. I wanted your take on getting a chance. Because maybe it's because we're older and we grew up on this. I loved Lone Ranger, man. Your Lone
Yeah.
Ranger was so much fun. And maybe it's because of, when we were kids, the cowboys and Indians thing, the heroism that came through cowboys and things like that. What attracted you about doing the gig, or was it just they approached you out of the blue? How did you end up with the gig to be able to do a Lone Ranger comic book like this? Because this is a lot of fun.
When I went to the Cuba school, my classmate was Keith Champagne, and he became a great inker writer, and he was a good friend. And he was the first one who asked me, Sergio, people at Dynamite are looking, for a Lone Ranger gig. I remember him being involved in it, and I said, sure. And I remember that they were looking for artists, and I submitted my version of it. And what I've learned was that there were 8 other guys trying to get the gig, but nobody caught the editors, writers, and art cover. The team there, Nick Barucci, Brett Matthews, and John Cassidy. They were a team and what I've read was that John didn't have time to do it, so they wanted to get somebody to do the book. So they thought I captured what they wanted. And the Lone Ranger was not a superhero looking guy, but it was a regular Western guy, with the one that I submitted. And this was not to be a Marvel DC pow punch, it was more like Sergio Leone type of storytelling, very elongated panels, and that pace of Sergio Leone movie that we don't see anymore. That nowadays movies, every minute has to have an explosion or something dramatic. And the Western movies, they took their time building the story, and that was what this story, the series, was all about from the team. And I loved it. I loved the Lone Ranger's creed as well. If you search the Lone Ranger's creed, it is pretty much a Christian creed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love the character. I remember the Lone Ranger when I was a kid. I don't remember many of the TV shows, but I remember some, and I definitely remember the song, the music that goes with it. So to me, it was a joy, and I did the Lone Ranger simultaneously as I was working on the Action Bible, and I was working on Son of Samson for Zondervan, HarperCollins publishers. So I was very busy, very, very extremely busy. But I loved the story, the pacing, and the different type of atmosphere that we approached that series, which got us a nomination for best new series in 2007.
Yeah,
we didn't win, but we were nominated.
It's it's fun. I haven't done a review. That's one that's kind of like come to my idea. Like, I haven't done like really Western comics. I really done a review like that. I should go back and just do little chunks of the story or whatever. Did you model your design or anything after someone in particular? How did you come up with your look of what the Ranger would look like?
I don't remember anybody in particular. I definitely don't remember.
Yeah.
If they mentioned somebody, I don't remember. Maybe they did, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
Basically, we wanted a younger guy, and I just to me it would have been like a Peter Parker type with unshaved Peter Parker version. Like that. I'm not sure.
I would just love to see. I mean, I've done videos like this is my Sunday What's Your Story show. We did an episode there. I've talked about it in a couple of different streams and things about how the Westerns, like we just got to figure out how to, bring back the Western genre a little bit. It just seems lost. And even if it's just us doing a lot more reviews and conversation about these classics that were like that. And Lone Ranger is definitely part of that. Lone Ranger is cemented in our American history and lexicon, and doesn't get that attention. So I'm glad you're able to be a part of that. And I definitely need to put that on my list, folks. And that's around, it was published, started in 2006. I think you probably can find some trade paperback or something like that. Maybe even it has more like a collection of it all.
Yes.
But it's not something that would be radically expensive or anything like that if you're looking for issues. So, if you go hit your local, I always say start with your local shop before you go on the internet. Let's keep them in business as long as we can. So I don't think it's going to break your bank to track down some back issues and things like that as well. And I'm kind of a show for the Lone Ranger. There's a top series I thought was great. They had Lady Rawhide in, and I thought all that stuff was just fun. And that's more modern stuff. That's not even like the really old classic stuff that we grew up on. So that's great. So let me transition to the Action Bible, because we definitely, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where you already touched on it, that quote, there was no market for it. And here you are. I don't even know what your sales numbers are at the moment. I know we've gone over at least probably about 2 million in the US, and definitely 60 million globally, probably. It's nuts. It's crazy how big it is.
Yeah, it is. It is big. Yeah, it is. It's 2.5 million in America, and the Action Bible brand, which includes all the books related to the Action Bible that I've done for the same publisher, goes beyond 9 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's great. And it's great to see that response is there. It's great to see that, I've seen the reprints and the re-releases and things like that. The demand, that's where I'm looking for. I couldn't get it. The demand is still there. People are still thirsty for this media of entertainment and that content. Like, that's just a great way to communicate a in this case, historical story, but just a story in general, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What is the one piece of it that you're sort of, I don't want to say like the most proud of, but like there's one that you're like, you know what, every time I look at that one, I feel like that was something special. Maybe that's what one of those stories out of it. Or
Well, I would say when I drew David and Goliath, because that was my tryout pages when David met Goliath, and I remember they gave me the script and they said, you have a couple weeks to do just pencils of these 2 pages of David and Goliath, and I remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, reading the picture Bible in black and white in a smaller version, a digest version of Andrea LeBlanc, beautiful illustrations. I love that stuff. That was part of my dream back when I was a teenager. That I thought, well, it'd be cool to be able to do something like this as well. Not only Spider-Man and Batman, which I did, and all the superheroes, but being able to do that. So when I submitted, I also learned that they had other people trying out for the Action Bible, which was going to be called the New Picture Bible. So they gave me 2 weeks to do it. In the next day, I submitted 2 pages, pencil, ink, lettered, and colored. And what as much as I loved Andrea LeBlanc's entire picture Bible work, in the section that when he did David and Goliath, the 2 pages from which I would recreate, I think he had a bad choice of angles, because he had David in the foreground and the giant in the background, really small. And in my head, it was like, that's not telling the story the way I perceive it. I perceive David to be a little guy and the giant being huge. So I reversed the angle on that, and I made a big foot on the foreground, and then David really small in the background, changing the dynamics of it. And that knocked out that assignment tryout page in a way that I blew them away, and the art team, Bob LaPian, Mary McNeil, Bob DeLaPian, yeah, they loved it so much, but they told me we have to wait for the other guys to submit their tryout because you were too fast. But we are so sure that we want you that we're going to do an audio to go with your art. That's it. That's not the actual page, the tryout. The tryout was a couple pages sooner or after that.
Right.
the one that he's throwing. That one, that was a tryout, and that was the page that was used, which was great. I didn't have to redraw it, but they made an audio that, to go along with those pages, to convince the directors, the CEOs of the time, this is the guy we want, to do the book. And I came on to do the New Testament first, and that New Testament came out first, called the New Picture Bible, and it's still you can still get that somewhere. And then after we finished the New Testament, then we went back to the Old Testament, and then we decided to change the name to the Action Bible.
Yeah, it's man, I tell you what, I just remember going through some of those. I remember having Sunday school lessons, and my wife she had like the littles, like the pre-K kids, and we'd bring in the Action Bible and just try to have illustrations and things you can point to, and just to give people and those kids those visuals, right? And I said again, it goes back in that title. I think this is what you really hit the nail on the head, was because you had the experience that you had with the superhero stuff. You knew how to bring action to it. It wasn't just a static image or set of images of, here's this picture of, big giant and little David, and then it was like, next picture this, and it's like, no, you could see movement and different action and things like that. And I think that is what really has drawn people in, and why you're still enjoying millions and millions of copies. I'm just so happy for you, and happy for everybody that's been able to experience it that way, because it is just such a great way to present those stories and communicate and that kind of thing. Is there a story from the Bible or something that you still would love to do more with, or something else that you would like to try to explore in a different way, or something like that?
I was thinking about that, and the two stories that come to three stories that come to mind would be, or at least four, because
I love it. This is the best, when you get those wheels turning.
Yeah, David and Goliath, more in depth.
Yep.
Samson, more in depth, and then
Mm-hmm.
some parts of Jesus. One thing that I'd love to do with the Jesus story that we didn't do anywhere is when the soldiers come to arrest him and said, "Who are you looking for? Are you looking for Jesus? Are you Jesus?" And I am. And when he said, "I am," they fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to draw that, and that was not done. But with
I would love to see. I'd love to see this work with like short animations. And again,
right.
the Sunday school pastor in me is like, how do I get into, these little 3-minute animation sequences, or something that we could do short, like you're saying, of this little story or whatever, because you can really connect with not only the beautiful art and illustration, but also the story and a little bit of that movement. I would throw one to the mix, maybe not on your radar screen, and I say it only because it is possibly the one story in the Bible I get to point to the most, especially for people that are not believers, and that is Jesus in the boat and the storm. You know what I mean? It's like he could them in the storm, because one of the messages is, you can't necessarily control that the storm is coming, but you can control how you react to the storm. And then if you look to the right person that has control and power over the storm, look at what's possible. I'd love to see that illustrated out more with that sort of, I don't know, that power of the contrast, right? Of how we can get in that feeling of that darkness and that cloud and hopelessness, and contrast that with the light and the hope and the peace that all comes. And it's just, and I'm not trying to discount what you accomplished by any
No,
stretch of
I mean
imagination.
that illustration has been done several times
Sure.
for the Action Bible brand.
Yes.
I love that
Yeah.
scene as well. I love Prince of Egypt, and all that movie is amazing.
Sure.
and I love everything about it. And I'd love to see an animation of the Action Bible. And we tapped into that, talked to a few studios and stuff. Um, I It didn't happen. Um, I don't know if it will ever happen. Um, to do an animation, we need millions. We need
Yeah.
millions of dollars donated to see the. I don't own the property, and Dipsy Cook is a nonprofit. They have so much going on in ministry, and the Action Bible has been the flagship of the publisher, as I understand it. It has become um, the success of the Action Bible is beyond what all of us imagine. None of
Agreed.
us could measure and think that it would have been what has been, and it continues to do so, which is fantastic. And uh, but I'm with you. I mean, all these things phenomenal to illustrate, to convey in different forms, in different angles, in different storylines, in different depths, and different versions. Yeah.
I want to just reiterate the unexpectedness of this. This seemed at the time a very insider Christian thing when it dropped. And I remember everybody came to me because I knew I was a comic book nerd anyway. And aren't you excited? Of course I was excited. I already had my copy. I already had one. And I remember it was Black Friday and the local store, which I think was the Lifeway store, had a sale on them. And you could get them for like $10. And I remember talking to the pastor, and anyway, we ended up buying like 15 of them. We ended up buying as many as, I don't know if the store was a limitation or if we only had under $50, but we bought all these books so we could have them to give. And what you're saying about that expectation was how many people were just blown away. Like they just couldn't, because everything up until that point, like we talked about, was like that static art, the Sunday school stuff, and it's not to discount that it didn't have its value and its importance and its place, but this was a game changer for people. And I got to be honest, most people were not comic book people, so they didn't even understand what we're talking about, Sergio. Like you and I are like, well, yeah, we're used to action and we're used to fighting and stuff and blah blah blah. It's like, you know what I mean? What do you mean you can show Moses doing this and David doing that? And what, yeah, of course, the Bible is so full of just fun and adventure and so much stuff interwoven in there. Yeah, it's just great. And I'm great to see it be a brand, really, which is a cool thing for you to even say, because that kind of mind blowing to think about, isn't it? It's actually
Yeah,
a brand.
yeah, because I've I've had people say that the Action Bible has a special anointing, and you cannot reproduce that, and you cannot fabricate that. This is something that comes from above, and if it is there, it is there. It is not. Say if you talk secular way of things, it's like some things are boom like that. Superman, boom.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
Lightning in a bottle is the term we
yeah.
use, right? Yeah.
So, but if you're of faith, you mentioned anointing because you believe that God has His finger on it. Um, if you don't believe in God and you believe in faith, um, you're probably going to try to reproduce that, and that's what we, as professionals, we try to create something in hopes that will hit the market and be successful. That's we all strive to hit something that is huge, just like anything. But well, if something has a an anointing from above, um, it is meant to be, and it is meant to impact people in a way that is beyond entertaining, is beyond uh, just a job, just a drawing, just a something. Because the amount of impactful lives that I've heard from firsthand at conventions, or email, or phone call, or interviews or what have you. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I'm talking internationally. I'm talking.
Sure.
I think reading uh, letters and emails and reports from all over the world, and also because I've traveled all over the world to meet people because of the success of the ministry. Um, so we talk success. I'm talking. I'm actually tapping into the success in the good news part of it, of making change
Right.
and making changes in lives, and not the
Impact.
success, the impact. Not. It's like a
Sales numbers.
bestseller
Right.
sales. I'm talking about the success of the impact of the job in
Right. Yeah.
changing people's lives, and I'm talking people from prison, from all sorts of backgrounds that didn't care about the Bible, didn't care about God, and found God because of it. So it's amazing. It's amazing to see that reaction from people, that repercussion, that feedback, um, and it's an honor uh, to be involved in something like that, and and it's humbling because I understand uh, the power from above. I give up on my merit for it, and
Mm,
I give the glory to the one who deserved the glory for it.
that's
Uh,
awesome. That's
um,
awesome.
so that makes a different take on what is success and what is not.
True. Very true. So, well, before we wrap up, folks, again, love your comments that are out there. Please keep those coming. I'd love to have Sergio back sometime to continue to go into these things. Maybe we could do one live and just kind of let you guys ask questions and take interaction from you guys as well. If that's possible at some point, who knows? But one thing I want to get to real quick before we go is, because you've been able to be in the industry now for so long, basically almost as long as we kind of like our parallels. I kind of grew up with you because I was getting into comic books, and there you were this whole time, especially during the 90s boom, where it's like so many of these things. I mean, I remember Deathstroke very specifically. I mean, I really remember your name right on it. Like, oh yes, look at this. I'm this guy. And again, you go back to talk to your younger self. Hey, listen, someday you're going to be at a computer. What a computer? Yes, I'm going to be at this thing called a computer on this internet thing, and we're going to talk to the guy who drew this book that you're buying today. That would have been, yeah, that was literally that. Do you have some mementos or things that you have, like, I don't want to say trophies, or it's just, what are those things that are in like the Sergio library and that kind of thing, kind of helps, kind of like of this journey that you have kind of been on? Is there anything in particular?
You're talking about job wise
Yeah,
and
just as an artist and as a creator and that kind of thing. Did you keep like an original piece of art that's on a wall somewhere, or do you have maybe you were able to get something at a show, or I don't know. Is there anything like that kind of like that's out there that's, we took a tour of the Sergio den or office there. We'd find all these interesting things on the wall or something like that, maybe.
yeah. Well, I remember when I got the Deathstroke. I think that was my first DC uh, gig monthly, and I think I had a continuity contract and exclusivity contract for a year. And I remember issue 0 sold 70,000 copies, and back then in the '90s it was great. Uh, it was not great, but it would have been fantastic today.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
uh, but it was good enough for me. Uh, I got a royalty out of that. But I remember working on this page and then listening to man, I forgot the what is it?
Because you were working with Marv, right? You were with Marv Wolfman
Mark
on a lot of
Wolfman.
that
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I remember listening to the song "Streets of Gold." What it was a singer. Um,
The song. Okay.
yeah,
Geez, yeah, you're catching me. Oh my gosh, song is "Need to Breathe," right? The "Need to Breathe" guys, right? Is that what you mean? or a newer song?
Well, I'll remember later, but I remember the songs that I put on as I was drawing that, and I cherish that moment of drawing the first pages for DC Comics. I love that. But in my journey, I also remember being at the Cuban School and listening to Joe Kubert. I mean, to me, that was amazing. I remember talking to Joe and be accepted at his school over the phone when I was going to Word of Life Bible Institute, and I applied without knowing how I'll be able to pay that. And I paid $100 for the registration. And Joe Kubert picked up the phone and talked to me, interviewed me over the phone. I remember that. So that is amazing. To meet Joe Sinnott over his studio and watch his Thor pages and his amazing brushwork and see him work. Joe Sinnott, one guy that I loved his art so much. To meet him in person, it was amazing. I remember the day I met John Buscema, the guy I admired so much when I was a kid, and to be able to go up to him and be able to talk. I'm a big fan of yours, and he tells me, oh, I just copied Jack Kirby.
Well, I mean, listen, who's not trying to emulate Kirby in some way?
But he didn't
right?
copy. You and I know he didn't.
No, was
But
inspired by, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I know he meant. So he was not stuck up. Kind of. He was
right.
He was human. he was down to earth. And it was great. So to me, it was amazing. The journey of seeing my work published and getting those comps of things that I did, see my name on the covers. It was amazing. It was just amazing to be able to teach at the Joe Kubert School. Was amazing. I meet people at conventions, having a table and see people asking me to sign their books. That was amazing. I mean, I wanted my idols to sign their books that I bought of their art, and now I have people asking me to sign their my art on books that they bought. And sometimes I'm surprised of things that I've done in the past that I even forgot. And here comes a person that, oh, can you sign my book? And was like, wow,
that's awesome.
So the journey through that is amazing. I have to be able to go with Mike Collin and Dennis O'Neill in a vegetarian restaurant in New York City and talk about Azrael and Legends of Dark Knight.
Oh yeah, that was such a good story arc too. We were so blessed. You did the Green Arrow one, right? It was the one with the bat and the arrow, right? Yes.
And so we
so good.
We talked it over on a restaurant, and to be able to meet Danny O'Neill so many times, and Mike Collin, and go to the offices and talk to Batman editors, and when I did Wildcat, Catwoman, and have Tom Palmer ink me, and have
this is my heyday back too. This is the Chuck Dixon era with Graham and all these incredible talents. It's just I have 2 full long boxes that I'm still going through, Sergio, as I'm trying to pare down as I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I don't have room for all this stuff, and I'm like, I look at each piece and it's like, this is so good, and I get another cup. This is so good. It was like, there's no like, oh, this is all just, I could part with all this. None of it's that. I'm like, I could reread each of these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a great, heyday. And I'm so cool that we were able to spend time together and reminisce about that and talk about your journey. And hopefully, folks, you found some inspiration in that. You find some words of advice, those kinds of things, and learned about some of the things that he's done that maybe you didn't know about, that kind of thing. We really can't even scratch it. So we didn't get into, he's done trading card art. He's done, I mean, there's so many things that someone that's been doing this for so long has got their fingerprints on. But Sergio, I appreciate your time because you've been very generous with that. It's just great. All the links are down below, that kind of thing. Any last thoughts for folks or anything else you'd like to throw out there real quick that maybe you're going to be a part of or you're going to be on or anything like that you want to plug real quick?
Oh, just keep Googling my name to see what's up, because I can never say what's up because they say, oh, don't talk about it. And so I can't. So
Yeah, there was,
I work for David C. Cook. I work for Focus on the Family. I've done stuff for Jews for Jesus and some other Christian folks out there, and I've done a lot of stuff for DC Comics. So just keep buying comic books and make this and keep this business alive.
Absolutely. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching another comic book talk. Stay tuned the rest of the day. You know, it's Comic Book Wednesday. What does that mean? Well, you not only get a great conversation like this, but you get some reviews from me. So, you know, who knows what I'm reviewing? It could be old stuff. It could be new stuff. Probably a little bit of both. Who knows? You got to stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with us, folks. I am Pops. Take care. Thanks again.